Now, we do have some PlayStation news switching over that is kind of exciting, but also a little, I guess, could be a turnoff for some people, in that PlayStation has partnered with Discord. So we covered before that there was this whole thing of Discord was potentially opening up to being bought for like $10 billion or something by another company. And for a while, Microsoft was supposedly in talks with doing that. And eventually Discord said that they weren't going with that deal and that they're likely going to just go public instead of be bought. And they have now partnered with PlayStation, who have purchased a minority stake in Discord. And they will start rolling out Discord integration into the PlayStation service next year. Now, I'm disappointed that it's going to take them until next year to roll it out, and I really hope they can still work out some sort of deal with Xbox, because I think having Discord integration with the consoles in the future is going to be just a ton of value for everyone. So just as I was cautious about Xbox purchasing it and all of that in the first place, I don't want to see this become a PlayStation exclusive. I want to see Discord just get integrated in with the consoles in general to improve the voice chatting experience, especially with crossplay being so important these days, even if Sony is against it, which we'll talk about in a moment. Crossplay is a huge deal at the moment, and getting proper, communication and chat going through crossplay is actually not a great experience right now, and would be improved greatly by using a third-party platform like Discord, which allows you to connect between, the two sets of platforms. But we'll see. PlayStation is super anti-competitive. I don't think that's the right word, but also, anti-crossplay and things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just offered Discord enough money to take that minority stake, but tell them to not integrate with Xbox, which would be disappointing, but like I said, not super surprising. Next up in PlayStation news, we got some rumors from Upload VR, who seems to be a pretty good authority when it comes to VR news and releases and things like that. They got some rumors about the upcoming next-gen PlayStation VR headset. We haven't actually had a new PlayStation 5 VR headset yet, and we got some news about it, which supposedly the headset will be 4K, which is a 4000 by 2040 screen size per eye. Well, 2000 by 2040 per eye. And then a lens separation adjustment dial, gaze tracking capable of foveated rendering, meaning that it can actually scan basically where your eyes are looking across the screen and render more detail predictively based on that, instead of just having to render the entire scene in, which is fascinating, if so. As well as some other stuff like haptic feedback, a motor in there. It would have to be a really gentle haptic feedback, because having something vibrate against your head is going to give me a headache already, and VR is already so prone to motion sickness and headache related issues that I would be super nervous to add any more risk into that. But exciting stuff regardless. Honestly, I am very behind on the VR train. I still have in my box over here on a shelf my original Oculus Rift that I got sent a couple years ago to make a video on some VR stuff, and I ended up playing it was Hellblade. And the whispering, the ASMR stuff actually kind of gave me some panic attack issues, and I stopped playing from there, even though I enjoyed the mech games and things like that I was playing. And frankly, at this point, I've just been given the impression that it's not worth using to play the new Half-Life and things like that, and so I just haven't messed with VR at all. And so I've been keeping an eye out on all the new releases. There was also the new, I think the new Vive event just happened, and they announced new Vive hardware and things like that. So there's a lot of new VR developments coming forward. None of them really using that USB-C connector NVIDIA told us would be standardized. But I'm looking to see if anything might be worth my money, but it's all pretty expensive at the moment. And the only reason I got the Rift in the first place was because it was sent to me. So whatever. In terms of being able to purchase a PlayStation, Sony warns that the PlayStation 5 supply will be limited into next year. And this is, again, as we talked about many times already, a really interesting idea, because they've actually sold more PlayStation 5s at launch than they sold PS4s. And roughly 10% or so have ended up in the hands of scalpers, but otherwise, most of them have ended up in the hands of gamers. However, there's just that much more demand for it this year, and so they're really struggling to keep up with supply. Now, I find it interesting when everyone makes a big deal about individual product companies pointing out that the supply will be an issue into 2022, because all of that is predicated on a statement from TSMC, which claimed that their shortages and their supply chain issues will last until 2022. And all of these companies, the car companies, the fridge companies, the consoles, whatever, they're all reliant effectively on TSMC to get more factories up and running and meet demand on top of the drought issues they were having in China or in Taiwan, and all of those issues. And so there's nothing like inherently specific to PlayStation here that is shorter, I guess. But it is worth noting that it's affecting everything, and it doesn't. And someone in chat is again saying, but all the bots have them. I don't think majority gamers have PS5. According to analysts, and that only goes so far, but scalpers and bots and things like that only account for 10 to 12% of sales. And so realistically, most of the consoles, 10 to 12% is not insignificant, but realistically, most of the consoles that have been sold have ended up in the hands of people who are playing them. Also, keep in mind that the bots and everything are buying them to sell them, not to hoard them. So theoretically, they're still ending up eventually in the hands of people, even if they're just paying more for it. We got a couple more pieces of PlayStation news here while we're at it. The PS Vita store. We've talked about in a couple Streamer Newz now. There was this whole drama of Sony announcing that the PS3 and PS Vita stores would be shutting down this summer permanently. And we kind of were like, what the heck? And they said, oh, okay, that's fine. We'll put them back up. However, the deadlines to get new games listed on the PS Vita store has not changed. And so there will be no new games available to be listed on the PS Vita store after this summer. And there are still plenty of Japanese developers working on PlayStation Vita games that will now basically have to crunch to get them out in time for this. It's a little weird because realistically they have no major reason to not just go ahead and keep letting developers release games for it. But of course they're going to try to force everyone over to their newer platforms and whatever. But it's worth noting regardless, as we may see some games that never make it to light because they can't meet the deadline for releasing. One last piece of Sony PlayStation related news in that throughout this whole epic Apple lawsuit that's been going on, lots of weird stuff has been released, and frankly, I don't care to cover most of it. It's just, there's lots of drama and confusion and old people making laws that don't understand technology and all of that. However, and we knew, because Rocket League launched with crossplay and then Sony quickly shut it down, we knew that Sony was already one of the ones that was locking in crossplay in the first place. But we got some leaked documents here that kind of showcase just how serious Sony was about restricting crossplay, to the extent that they are the only platform that charges the game publishers revenue share money to give back to Sony that they claim are being lost through crossplay in order to allow crossplay to happen. So if you have a multiplayer game that you like and you're wondering why it doesn't support crossplay on the PlayStation for your favorite to play with your friends or whatever, it's because Sony is charging them to have crossplay when no one else is. And that's just really kind of crappy. They have been so just awfully against it. And they effectively, Epic had to negotiate with them to play up Sony allowing crossplay, when in reality they're being pretty crappy about it. Based on all these business predictions that they're losing money by crossplay being enabled, which I don't know that I believe, but it's a thing, and I'm not the one who makes those rules or analyzes the business for it, so it doesn't mean that I know what I'm talking about.